Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So today's upload we'll be talking about some pretty heavy snow potential across the United States. It's really cool to see how in like the past month I was looking at my videos, I went from talking about just like storm systems, rainstorms, no mention of snow. Then some of them started to produce snow across the northern portions of Canada, and now we're talking about snow not only occurring but also occurring at some very heavy rates and possibly some very heavy amounts of snow across the lower 48 in southern Canada. So definitely late fall, winter. This winter storms are here, so we're getting in this active time. Before we get in, if you guys like what you're seeing on here, you like this channel, consider subscribing, obviously, only if you'd like. And if you are a returning viewer, liking the video would be amazing. So thank you so much for doing that. Let's get into this weather. So we start off by looking at the European model, and notice we have right now Sunday the 18th, and that's what today is as I'm recording this video. You may be watching this a bit later, but notice what we see is a lot of precipitation is kind of scattered around the United States. We see a bit of rain across the Midwest, a bit of sleet mixing into portions of Canada. Really nothing too significant. The biggest snow, if you will, is occurring across Montana right now, Wyoming, but they just have winter weather advisories across Montana and Wyoming and Idaho. It's really not that big of a deal, but it will get much worse potentially if we look at a long range. Notice as we push into early Tuesday, we have a bit of that rain pushing off into the northeast, mixing in with a bit of snow. The cold air is present, the chillier air, but it's not anything extraordinary. What we do see is this little wave, which is producing right now snow across Montana. It continues to intensify. A low pressure kind of shoves itself out, and out ahead of a kind of like a convection area, we see very heavy snow develop early Tuesday morning, even late Monday morning. Late Monday morning, late Monday evening, we see a bit of snow developing across Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota. This quickly intensifies. These rates will be heavy. Where exactly this sets up is obviously going to determine where the heaviest of the snow falls. At this point, it looks to be central Minnesota. Minneapolis will be kind of on the dividing line. South will be lighter amounts, 2 to 3 inches. North, there could be even up to 7 to 8 inch amounts of snow. This will be brief but heavy, falling Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday noon afternoon, and continuing into the evening hours. You can see that it does weaken as it pushes north of Lake Superior into Duluth, the Arrowhead. Definitely, though, a good portion of northern Wisconsin, western half of the UP, and Minnesota are seeing quite a bit of snow. Green Bay, this is rain. For many locations, this is mainly a rain event. As we push this further into the forecasting time, you can see that we get some rain developing across Kansas, Missouri, Illinois. These could be a bit stronger storms, not severe. It doesn't look to be the proper atmospheric conditions to see that, but you can see that this does kind of consolidate into a larger storm. Southern Canada, where a lot of folks live in this little corridor, not many snow, really, not many snow prospects for you in terms of this storm. It does have quite a bit of heavy snow to the north, so if you live across central Ontario, Thunder Bay, for example, we'll be seeing some rain-snow mix out of this. As we push this forward, more and more, central Quebec seeing quite a bit of snow. This develops into a pretty hefty system, and really the northeast does get a bit of rain, but it's not that much. It's really just heavy on the snow side, and that pushes off into southeastern Canada. Also, in terms of winds with this event, thankfully, nothing too great. This isn't, going to be a blizzard event. This will be more of that type of event where it's just heavy, wet snow falling, almost like rain, just up vertical, up and down. What we do notice right after that storm system pulls away from the United States, we quickly turn our heads towards another system which makes its way onto the northwest. At around late Tuesday, while this storm is cranking up, we see a system move into the northwestern United States, Montana, Idaho, Washington, Wyoming, and this storm is now where models start differentiating. Here, this system I want to show you right here, the Tuesday one, most models are agreement with. They're showing almost exactly the same setup, so it's great to have such agreement. There will be different details, whether or not where the rain snow line sets up exactly, but definitely good agreement with that system. And this storm, it starts cranking itself up by Idaho, Montana. There's quite a bit of cold air this system has to work with, and there's a bit of model differentiating with this. Look at that. It moves out into North Dakota with very heavy snow. We see a warm front, possibly some powerful storms moving through Iowa, Illinois, Wisconsin, into Michigan, Indiana. This is moving to the north, and this eventually does meet up with this actual system. The winds will be possibly strong. Doesn't look to be too concerning on the southern side, especially since it's just winds. The worst side is right here where we have that snow and winds, and of course these locations, the Dakotas, are known to have blizzards, kind of like the Blizzard Alley. And thankfully the storm really is kind of stronger once it comes off the mountains, and afterwards it doesn't really do much. I mean, there's a lot of precip floating around, right? Minnesota, North Dakota, southern Canada, Manitoba, Ontario, Duluth seeing rain, but again, some models are showing it a bit further to the south, the rain snow line. And this is occurring throughout the day on Thursday, and then as we push into Friday, Friday morning, we see a pretty large area of precipitation of rain, and the system really fails to organize itself too well. It doesn't do the greatest job at all, and you can see that this does fall apart, but it's still producing quite a bit of precipitation. And across southern Canada, you can see the backside of this producing good loads of precip, snow. Rain will definitely be a factor in this. You can see the southern United States getting on some of that rainfall with this system more than the previous storm, because it has more influence, if you will, with the tropics, and that rides into the northeast. And this remaining energy is where the models completely differ. So this is the European model that I'm showing you right now, the high-res ECMWF. Usually the European is the more accurate one, but in this case, it's the outlier. So we'll have to see what it does. But notice, as we track this into next week, around a week from now, so this is still very far out, we see a large area of precipitation, mainly snow, across Kansas, Nebraska, Colorado, Iowa, maybe into even Illinois, Missouri, the Panhandle. So if you were wondering, I got a few comments about when the storm will be occurring across the Panhandle yesterday, but I didn't have the time to answer. I just briefly saw them. Notice that this could be around the next week time frame, and the models are differing in this, so please don't set your hopes up too high, because this may change. But the European takes a good chunk of snow into the Panhandles and into Texas. As we push this forward, you can see this storm has a lot of energy from the tropics and from the west. By the way, this storm makes its way onto the western coast Saturday, onto Washington, Oregon. Pretty weak, nothing significant, but by the time it's Sunday, it's already across the plains, and you can see then it moves into the northeast. And this could be a very interesting scenario, because not only do we see a large, massive nor'easter with tons of rain, a bit of snow, depending on how much cold air is available. And look at that, we get lake effect snow bands coming off Lake Michigan. So we'll have to see about that, see what with such a huge storm, that would be likely. And in terms of the total, or in terms of temperature anomalies, I just want to show you that there will be contrasting periods between hot and cold air, but definitely the cold air will be available. I will be making a more in-depth video about that tomorrow in the morning, as it's just too much to talk about if I wanted to include the cold, the temperatures, and the precip in one video. In terms of total snowfall from the European model, this is what it includes. You could see a lot across the north into Wisconsin, Dakotas, the west. Washington State not seeing awfully too much. They did get quite a bit earlier on. It seems to be kind of the case where these storms get on pretty weak and then strengthen once they're off the mountains, so they don't leave a lot of precip for these areas. Still, though, quite a good chunk of Oregon seeing some snow, Idaho. And then notice you could even get some snow across, Amarillo, Texas, Oklahoma City, possibly with this European model run showing that. Northeast, not too much, but the Midwest, you could see a bit of snow mixing in these larger Canadian cities, possibly seeing a bit of snow. And just north of Lake Superior as well, quite a chunk of snowfall. Southeastern Canada also getting in on that snowfall action. And in terms of total precipitation, I want to take a quick glance at that, as this is, in the form of snow and rain. This is what you see right here, quite a bit, and it's really expansive. It does get a bit into the southwest, which is good news, but I mean, these are measly amounts. They would need much more in order to break out of the drought. But as of now, it doesn't look for that to happen. Let's take a look at the GFS. I'll just run through these much quicker, these next model runs, or these next models, because I want to, focus on the European the most, because that one seems to be the most accurate, and these are still, models, and usually they work together. I just don't want to spend another 7 minutes on each model. What we have, again, a lot of precipitation floating around, kind of to do with that jet stream. We have a lot of cold air, and it streams doing something like this. So the precipitation is riding along here, just dumping rain or snow depending on the atmospheric conditions. And as we push this into into Monday, the start of the work week, we see quite a bit of rain again developing across the northeast. The GFS is a bit more abundant with that precip than the European. But you can see right there, we have agreement with that first system on Tuesday, dumps a bit of snow and rain, intensifies into a larger system. Then we start seeing that second storm that the European also showed in a very similar fashion. Again, you can see the GFS took this further to the south, putting cities like Duluth right on the rain-snow line. So those differences will have to be refined. Both models don't make it too strong of a system. In the long term, you can see it moves off. A lot of rain, a lot of precipitation in Canada, but across, the U.S., not awful amounts of snow. And even Canada, this storm, if given the right conditions, has enough power to give much more snow than what it's showing right here. But unfortunately, with the fast-moving jet stream, this thing gets whipped out before having a chance to intensify. And this is where the models really start splitting up. If you recall, the European at around this time frame starts developing a storm system across the south that panhandles of Oklahoma, Texas, and moves it into the northeast as a really bomb-like storm. The GFS does include a large storm in that time frame, but in a completely different location, in a different setup, different arrangement, pretty much just a giant classic blizzard across the Midwest and the northern plains. Lots of rain, lots of snow, tons of wind, so this would definitely be a blizzard, but it's a completely different setup than what the European shows. Look at this, what the GFS shows. Lots of cold air catches up to the precip, possibly developing some sort of snow chances across the Missouri-Illinois area. Again, if you're watching this, looking at this and saying, oh wow, this is so far out, why are you even talking about this? I'm not saying that, this exact event will happen, and I mentioned it many times, the European showing something different than the GFS, than the Canadian, and this is just showing you that the models are hinting at a possibility of these sort of events, these drastic cold sharp fronts coming and digging through and bringing some snow in more unusual locations, and rain for the northeast, but again, not that bomb storm. And then things kind of seem to quiet down, maybe in the long range. We'll have to see as we enter early November. Let's take a glance at the total snowfall accumulations with the GFS, and you can see, obviously, they do show that snow across the Midwest and Ohio Valley, but they also show quite a bit of snow across the northern plains with that big blizzard in the long term in those two first systems. So a bit more active snow with the GFS than the European. The Canadian, you could see it shows a lot across the plains and basically cuts that off. And the reason for that is because it shows, similar to the GFS instead of the European, it shows a large blizzard in the long term, even more tightly packed. So this would be definitely interesting to see, and whether or not this occurs, we'll have to check. Notice it does have general agreement with a lot of these storms. Tuesday, what the other models are showing, into Thursday, the same thing, a bit weaker of a system than the other models, but has that final storm, kind of compensate for that. I mean, this thing's a beast. If you were to look at the GFS parallel, let's go back to the 12Z. This is kind of like the enhanced, newer GFS model that the Climate Prediction Center, NOAA, are making. And notice, again, we have the first system set up Tuesday. Relatively good agreement, keeps it a bit further to the south, and that would allow cities like Minneapolis to get a lot of snow. Moves off into the Canadian times, Ontario, Quebec, and then into Canadian Maritimes, delivering quite a bit of snow and rain. We see that warm front. Recall the European did a very similar thing. Lots of snow potential with this system again, and I do apologize that I'm going so quickly, but I wanted to run through them. And you can see that the GFS parallel brings it more towards the east, but it's still not what the GFS or it's still not what the European shows. You know, it's more closer to the GFS regular and the Canadian. So this is why the European at this point is an outlier, but you know that it may be an outlier and be correct. You can see the GFS does keep active chances for a bit, but then also dries things out, actually bringing in very warm temperatures possibly as we enter November. And to be honest, that would be pretty nice to see some 50s, 60s in November. So that's basically it for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Heavy snow on its way, but as of now, we'll just have to keep watching and see where exactly that heavy snow lines up. All right, thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all guys on the next episode. See ya. Bye.